grasped. This wasn't simply a man struggling with addiction, though that struggle was real and brutal. He had been battling a chronic, debilitating stomach condition for years, a pain so persistent and undiagnosed that it had become background noise to his entire adult life. Every performance, every interview, every quiet morning was shadowed by it. Doctors had cycled through theories and treatments. Nothing held. His marriage to Courtney Love, once a volatile but genuine partnership, was silently disintegrating. He had already begun preparing divorce paperwork, a fact that remained private, unknown even to some of his closest friends. He feared losing custody of his daughter Frances Bean, then not yet 2 years old. That fear wasn't abstract. It lived in him, and perhaps most symbolically, most painfully for someone who had once written songs as a form of pure survival. He had begun to view Nirvana itself as a burden rather than a calling. The band that had saved his life had become, in some terrible inversion, the thing he felt he could no longer carry. By early 1994, Kurt Cobain was not the same person who had written Nevermind. He was someone who had quietly, methodically, run out of reasons to stay. What does it mean when the very art that a serious overdose in Rome, publicly framed as accidental, privately understood as something more deliberate, those close to him pushed hard for intervention? He agreed to check into the Exodus Recovery Center in Los Angeles, one of the country's most respected rehabilitation facilities. But before he left Seattle, he made one quietly alarming request. He asked his friend Dylan Carlson to purchase a firearm on his behalf. His explanation was practical, almost offhand: protection from burglars. His own collection had been confiscated by police following a domestic dispute with Courtney weeks earlier. Dylan didn't press further. In Washington state, rifles required no Model 11 shotgun and handed it over without ceremony. Kurt checked into Exodus on March 30th. He was gone 2 days later, over the fence, back to Seattle, slipping away the way he had always slipped away from things that felt like containment. The days nobody can account for. Here's a question worth sitting with. If someone you loved disappeared for 4 days, how quickly would you notice? How long before concern became alarm? After leaving rehab, Kurt briefly surfaced on April 2nd, stopping at his Lake Washington home, attempting unsuccessfully to reach Courtney at her Los Angeles hotel, and then purchasing ammunition at a shop downtown. He was spotted later at a restaurant, where his bank card was declined at the counter. Unbeknownst to him, Courtney had frozen all his accounts, a precautionary measure meant to limit his access to resources while in crisis. He told the people nearby that his card had simply been stolen. After that, the trail goes cold in a way that still unsettles those who've studied it. He was seen sporadically on April 2nd and into April 3rd, moving through Seattle like a man trying not to be found. April 4th? Not a single confirmed sighting. No phone calls to friends. No contact with his bandmates, his manager, his mother. That entire day remains completely unaccounted for, a blank in the record that raises a question no one has satisfactorily answered. Where was he, and was anyone looking? April 5th, 1994, the final morning. Tuesday morning. A grey Pacific Northwest dawn, the sky the color of old pewter, heavy with fog rolling off Lake Washington. The kind of morning Aberdeen, Washington used to produce in endless supply. The town where Kurt grew up, where the rain and the grey and the sense of suffocation had shaped him long before music gave him an exit. Kurt wakes up in his Seattle home. The television is on MTV, the sound muted. Flickering images of music videos play without context, without meaning. He crosses the room deliberately, pulls REM's automatic for the people from its sleeve, places it on the stereo, turns the volume low. Michael Stipe's voice becomes a whisper in the background, elegiac, unhurried. He lights a cigarette, climbs back into bed, and picks up a red pen. He had been carrying these words for a long time. Days earlier, while still at Exodus, he had written a first letter, addressed to Courtney and to Francis. Raw and anguished, it was the letter of a man trying to explain the inexplicable to the two people he loved most. You know that I love you. I love Francis. Forgive me. Please don't follow me. That letter had nearly broken him to write. But it hadn't been enough. There was more he needed to say, and to someone else entirely. Now he writes a second letter. This one addressed simply to Bodder, his imaginary childhood friend, the companion he had invented during his loneliest years in Aberdeen when his parents' marriage was collapsing and he had retreated into himself completely. Bodder had been the one who listened when no one else did. The handwriting is small and deliberate, each word given weight. He had always been meticulous about language. It was the one place where he felt in complete control. The letter moves through his life, his relationship to music, to fame, to the expectations that had attached themselves to him like something he couldn't shed. It builds toward a fire softly through the speakers now. Kurt had always loved Andy Kaufman, loved the defiant absurdism, the refusal to perform on anyone else's terms, the insistence on being exactly what he was until the very end. Was there something in that, a kinship he was reaching toward in these final minutes? The greenhouse. He moves quietly through the house, past the bedroom where his assistant Callie was sleeping nearby, down the wide staircase with its view of the lake, through the kitchen with its ordinary morning stillness. He opens the refrigerator and takes a can of Bach's root beer, a small, human gesture born into in Aberdeen, 37 years earlier. Some people are marked by their hometowns in ways they can never fully escape. He walks toward the greenhouse at the back of the property, climbs a short wooden staircase, opens the glass door, sits down on the floor, his back against the wall, the lake invisible behind the fog. From here, the front of the house is visible. Almost no one can see inside. He smokes several more cigarettes, slow and deliberate, takes long sips from the root beer can. The fog doesn't lift. Then he pulls out the letter one final time and notices a small blank space remaining on the page, as though the letter itself wasn't quite finished, as though something still needed to be said. The linoleum floor makes writing difficult. The final lines come out larger, less controlled than the rest, the handwriting looser, as if the careful deliberateness had finally given way. Please keep going, Courtney, for Francis. Her life will be so much happier without me. I love you. I love you. The cigarette burns down. The fog holds. And here is the question that 3 decades have not answered, the one that haunts everyone who loved his music and wonders what might have been different. At any point in those final 4 days, was there a moment, a call, a conversation, a door left open, that could have changed what happened next? We may never know. But the asking of it matters. It always matters. 3 days of silence. He sets the letter on a small mound of soil and pins it in place with a red pen so it won't move. He finishes his cigarette, takes a last sip. Outside, the grey morning continues. What does a man think about in his final hours? Does he replay the concerts, the sold-out arenas, the deafening love of millions? Or does the mind go quieter than that, settling on something smaller, more private, more true? In the spring of 1994, Seattle wore its fog like a bus above the garage of his Lake Washington home, surrounded by glass walls that let the grey light pour in from every direction. Outside a hotel room. Just the soil, the cigarettes, the pen, and the letter. That pen, read, ordined personally, confessionally, the way a man speaks when he believes no one else is listening. The handwriting shifts part-way through. Whether that shift represents a change, tales like these. Private investigator Tom Grant, the man Courtney, to be less conclusive than originally presented. And critically, it was Courtney who, just 5 weeks before Kurt's death, had initiated